the expectation is that you would have branding on every phone call versus, just a telephone number that shows up or maybe something that might show up as like spam.
Welcome to the Fast Mode podcast series. I'm Tara Neil, and with me today we have Mick Moss, Senior Director of Product Management at TransUnion. TransUnion is a global information and insights company that makes trust possible in the modern economy. TransUnion was recently named the winner of the Digital Identity Innovator Award for performance at the Fast Mode Awards 2025, honored for its innovative Branded Call Display BCD solution. Welcome, Mick. Great to have you on today's episode.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so, how does the team at TransUnion feel about winning the Digital Identity Innovator Award?
Yeah, I mean, really awesome to win. And as I went through all the winners and the website and everything, it's a very diverse group. Vonage, that was one of the co-winners in our same category, great brand and everything. And for me, this is very meaningful because we've been working on branded call display for about 5 years now. And even though we've done billions of calls of impressions where we see the branded call display show, it's still in the infancy. And so anytime that we can have the opportunity to speak with those in the industry, have an opportunity to interview and talk about branding and how it can help with trust, that's really important because at some point, our goal really is that the expectation is that you would have branding on every phone call versus, just a telephone number that shows up or maybe something that might show up as like spam.
Yep, exactly. And it's a concern that basically everyone has on their minds, right? We all receive so many calls every day, and then and the ratio of spam calls keep increasing day to day. So this is something that everyone needs, to have. So we want to talk a lot more about BCD today. So can you walk us through how BCD works at the network level to show the business logo and stuff like the name and the call reason directly on the consumer's phone screen without needing any app on the consumer's device?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of start with defining what branded call display is in itself. So consumers today, as we're getting phone calls, and this is very near and direct for all of us. Well, mobile phones, we're all getting calls that come in. And the majority of time when that call comes in, if it's not loaded right into your contact list, it's just going to show the telephone number. And so here you are within 1, 2, 3, 5 seconds trying to figure out, was I expecting a phone call? Is that a number that's similar to me? And a lot of times, in fact, what we find that 88% of the time with enterprise calls, it goes unanswered. You're just not at ease of who it is. You worry about illegal fraudsters that are out there. And so it's an opportunity that gets missed. And what we're finding is there's a lot of cases where individuals who might have wanted that phone call and wanted to interact, maybe it's a reminder, maybe I'm refinancing a mortgage, and that's a missed call that I'd like to have had. So what is my outcome? I got to turn around and call the individual back again. It's sort of like this endless cycle of trying to get a hold of the people that you want to. So branded call display changes that. We want to be able to make sure that for the devices in the US, over 285 million mobile devices have the ability of putting at least a name on that device and then options to be able to put the business logo and also a call reason. So if I'm an enterprise and I'm making outbound calls, it allows me to be able to show exactly who it is from a branding perspective. You're able to have clear, concise information that's displayed on that mobile phone. And then us as all the consumers, what we'll see is, I haven't had to do anything on my mobile device. I haven't had to go in there and make any settings or changes. All I know is that all of a sudden I'm able to see clear identity when that call comes in. And so ABC Bank could display with the logo and the possible call reason, which allows me within just a couple seconds to understand who it is that's calling. So, how does this ecosystem fit together? From a TransUnion perspective, we have carrier partnerships with all the three major wireless carriers in the US, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and it's an ecosystem that allows us to be able to bring on a legitimate dialer, a legitimate enterprise. We would go through a vetting process for that enterprise, understand the telephone numbers that they use to make those outbound calls, those numbers that show up on our mobile devices, and then when they're in the program, they have the ability of selecting what caller name they want to have in there, the branding name itself. They can choose what logo they want to show. And then in certain instances, they can also show the reason for that call. We bring them into our Trusted Call Solutions product suite. We have a platform that allows us to be able to have an enterprise on board, bring their telephone numbers, choose the content that they want to have show on those mobile devices, and do this all where it's fraud proof, where we're able to do the vetting and the trust of the legitimate dialers, but then not allow outside entities or possibly fraudsters from being able to utilize these tools. So now an enterprise done all that work. We've gone through the vetting, we've got the content, we've got their numbers ready to go, and now they're making phone calls. And so as those calls are making it from the enterprise across the different various ways that the carrier networks connect together, that call is going to eventually end up on a mobile network, like a T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T. Before that call is lit up, before the phone is being paged where there's the ring time on it, we're going to get a query from those carrier partners. And they're going to query us to say, do we have any branded content for that call? And in cases where we do, we'll return back like a name and a logo, and then it'll show and be paged down to the device itself. Now, this is a long explanation for something that happens in milliseconds, but the idea is we want to be able to make it trustworthy, make it easy to understand, but then also give some structure to where it's something that, couldn't be abused by nefarious entities.
Well, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? The complexity is hidden, but then you deliver this very simplified approach to both, for telcos and then for the enterprises, and as well as, of course, the end users who receive these calls. So it's a seamless thing. Okay, to our next question, building from what you've just said, what results have clients? You guys have served telcos and enterprises and stuff. So let's look at one case study like NewZip, for example. So what have these guys experienced in terms of higher call answer rates or better CX or reduced fraud risk after rolling out the solution, the BCD?
Yeah. So we had an opportunity to do some partnerships with NewZip where we did some structured testing to look at the viability of, what is the difference when a call goes as it always has been, where maybe it's just the phone number that shows up, or if there's some cases where it's misunderstood, it might show up as spam, to where we're able to have a clear identity of NewZip when those calls come in. NewZip was able to see 25% increase in answer rates during that time, which is really important where they're
Wow.
offering services in the mortgage industry and the ability to have those consumers interact to those calls that are coming in there. So that 25% increase allows them to have more trust, more engaged conversation. And then as we continue to work with NewZip, it's going to be what other different use cases might work best in the mortgage space for them. And really, in a sense, allow them to be able to grow and utilize that branding experience.
Wow, amazing, isn't it? 25% increase. It's a huge number. So all
That's
that
huge. That's
lost
great.
lost business for everyone, with the operators, I guess, and also the enterprises. So from what you're saying, I can imagine a situation where, maybe 10 years, 15 years down the road, people are going to say like, there was a time when you guys were receiving calls without knowing who's calling. You were just looking at
Right.
numbers. There was
Yeah.
right.
That's the
Okay,
goal.
so
That's the vision.
that's
Yeah,
the
is
goal.
is for that to be the staple, the expected outcome, and not be something where, like right now, I get excited when I see a branded call display come in, but I want that to be more the expectation on every call. That's right.
Yes, awesome. Okay, now looking at the bigger picture, how does BCD help CSPs monetize trust, protect consumers from impersonation scams, and strengthen the security of voice communications? We touched a bit about this, but let's see what are the big outcomes that telcos can target in the coming years.
Yeah, so I think that the outcomes is, it isn't always about the answer rate. I mean, it worked great for NewZip. It helps drive their business. We look at sort of every different industry vertical, whether it could be healthcare or banking, even those calls where you got to have a payment reminder. Some of those calls where it might be a speed to where you need to be able to get to the right time, or if you've got a customer that might be frustrated and it's a customer service department that's calling back. What we're finding is when you lead with identity, more people are willing to engage. We see more leads get closed. We see payments being made quicker. We see customer like the service satisfaction scores, they go up when you have that in place. And, we just came after another really large open enrollment in the healthcare space where a lot of people were looking to get insurance. A lot of users, a lot of enterprises are using Branded Call Display to be able to make sure that those consumers understand that it's a healthcare company. They're offering insurance, allowing them to be able to make the best possible decision. So, as we do that, we're seeing those large benefits in the communication space. We know there's fraud though. So one of the areas that we're always being careful of is how can we make sure that we can prevent fraudsters from utilizing this channel? There's already inherent trust when we receive a phone call from a mobile device or on our mobile devices where we see content, where we see the name or the logo. Consumers already want to trust and answer and engage. So we want to keep making sure that we put the legitimate dialers into those situations. But when we think about a fraudster, we want to make sure they're not able to get in and use that channel. We don't want to have them pretending to be one of the top 10 banks that are out there or a huge mortgage entity. So we've got other ways where we encompass the whole branded calling solution. We've got some ways that we can help work with the enterprise to know when they place their outbound calls, where we can honor the branding when we know it comes from the legitimate dialer, from the legitimate enterprise. But then we also have options to when a fraudster maybe tries to use a number. Fraudsters are out there trying to illegally spoof. They're trying to find numbers off of websites and areas where they think they can try to gain that false trust from a consumer. And one of the areas that we're working with is while we're promoting really well on the display, we also want to block that fraudster outright. And we've got evolving solutions in the fraud space to where me as a consumer, I'm going to get those identified calls when it's me, and I'm going to be able to not have those fraud calls to me when it could be something that's nefarious. And I think that's really important. The goal is promote when we can, but don't put the consumer at risk where they could receive a phone call that might be misunderstood.
Wow, awesome. Awesome. I guess, there's huge value for everyone who's involved in here. And I can see particularly the enterprises. I mean, they've built all this relationship with their customers and they have their brand reputation and stuff. And just because they can't, put their name across the system onto the consumer devices, they just lose the entire thing. So I guess, we are just augmenting the brand reputation for a lot of people out there.
That's the plan. That's right. Absolutely. Make sure that the enterprise who's doing the legitimate things. They are running a campaign. They're following all the rules. It's an individual that in a lot of cases wants that call. We're making that message clear and at the same time make sure we keep fraud away from this.
Yes, awesome, awesome. Well, I guess, Mick, that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us
Yeah,
and for sharing all these insights, especially on BCD and the benefit it brings to consumers, enterprises, and telcos.
really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Okay. And to everyone tuning in, thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more, visit www.transunion.com and follow us for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you in our next session. Bye bye.